And good morning again. With us, two of the senators from the Judiciary Committee who will be questioning Elena Kagan, Dianne Feinstein in San Francisco, Jon Kyl, who is in Phoenix. And Senator Kyl, I want to start with you because on one of the broadcasts this morning, Newt Gingrich said, "We are in two wars. I see no reason to appoint an anti-military Supreme Court justice." Now, I guess this grows out of the fact that when she was the dean of the Harvard Law School, she would not allow military recruiters on campus because of the don't ask, don't tell policy of the military. Do you think that Elena Kagan is anti-military, and is this something that's going to play a part in these hearings?
I don't know whether she's anti-military, and it will play a part in the hearings. That'll be one of the things that we will question her about. Incidentally, Bob, she described the policy as the discriminatory policy of the military, but of course the don't ask, don't tell law was passed by Congress and signed into law by President Clinton. So in my view, it was inappropriate for her to describe it as a discriminatory policy of the military. She did not deny entry onto the campus of the President Clinton, or the members of the Congress who had adopted the law.
But that's a little beyond being anti-military, is it not? I mean, you don't start out thinking that she's anti-military, or do you?
I don't know. I mean, I have no basis to judge that except for the incident that you're talking about. And then there have been some other things that she has written related to the war on terror, for example, that caused me some concern. But other than the way she described that policy, I don't know of anything else in her background that would lead to that conclusion.
I'll come back to that. But Senator Feinstein, what do you believe that this woman could be anti-military?
Not at all. And I think that's nonsense. I think it's Gingrich hyperbole. And I would hope that no one would fall for that. I don't happen to support the don't ask, don't tell policy. That doesn't mean I'm anti-military. And I think that's really a far reach. This is an inordinately qualified woman. I mean, if you just look at her credentials, you will see somebody that is almost a one-off. And to add to that, she is a very nice, down-to-earth person. I mean, it's not easy to be summa cum laude from Yale, go to Oxford, be summa cum laude when you get your law degree from Harvard, be a professor of law at the University of Chicago, dean of the Harvard School, advisor to the president, and the top lawyer for the government before the Supreme Court. I mean, I think that's a very unique set of credentials.
Well, Senator Kyl, you in fact voted to confirm her to be Solicitor General. Does that mean that she can count on your vote this time around?
No, I explained at the time that my vote for the temporary position as the government's top lawyer in the Justice Department did not suggest how I would vote were she to be nominated for a lifetime appointment to a court, such as the Supreme Court, because there was talk at the time that she might receive a nomination. We have an obligation as senators to do our due diligence to find out all we can about her background, because once she's confirmed to the court, if she is, there's no appeal from her decisions. She is the last word. And I will tell you that the key question that I will have, and I'll try to find out all of the information I can to help me answer this question, is whether she will lay her political beliefs aside when she's deciding cases, and decide those cases strictly based upon the facts and the law of the case. That may be a little difficult in her case because she's never had to do that before as a judge, and so it's more difficult to know whether she's actually able to set her views aside. But that'll be the primary.
Let me go back to what you said. You said you had some concern about some of the things she's written about terrorism. What concerns you?
Well, in 2005, when Lindsey Graham and I and others were drafting a law to try to deal with the terrorists who were held down at Guantanamo and others, we drafted a law which ultimately was passed and signed into law that defined the term enemy combatants. We provided for a system for them to be classified as such, and for that determination to be appealed to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals and so on. She wrote a letter along with some other law professors to the Senate and described that bill that we had at the time in most unflattering terms, and contended that we had to provide Article 3 or regular civilian court appeals from the decisions of the military commissions, which would of course make the whole point of military commissions irrelevant. She compared our bill to the fundamentally lawless actions of dictators. Now, that's not very judicious. And I don't know whether she would recuse herself from cases that involve those kinds of questions, but it certainly is a question that I'm going to have to ask her. Can she lay those political views aside when she deals with a case concerning terrorists?
What would be your response to that, Senator Feinstein?
Well, I'm not aware of this, so I've got to look into it much more deeply. But I spent about an hour with her, as did Jon Kyl, as did, I guess, most of our committee. And what I found was a woman that was very down to earth, a woman that I think Americans would respond to extraordinarily positively. She doesn't carry her intelligence like a medal on her chest. You have to pull it out of her. But I think what you see is a very mainstream thinking individual who has a warm personality, who has qualifications for the court. Now, when she wrote as an advisor to a president, she obviously provided advice that she thought was true and beneficial to that individual. 2005, I don't know exactly what Jon is referring to, but I will certainly find out. I have seen nothing that ought to cause anything other than her being confirmed.
Well, let me just ask you this, Senator Feinstein, because she, as an advisor to Bill Clinton, wrote him a memo urging him to be against partial birth abortion, late-term abortions. I know you're for a woman's right to choose. Is that a problem for you?
Well, I have looked at that memo. As a matter of fact, I showed it to her when she came in to meet with me. And essentially what there were two amendments, one by Senator Daschle and one by someone by the name of Dianne Feinstein. And she advised the president that she thought the Daschle amendment was the one that the administration should support. It was a little bit tougher with respect to the definition of health of a woman, but it dealt with the health of a woman. And those of us who are pro-choice believe that Roe v. Wade's admonition that the health and life of the mother must be taken into consideration is important. There are some that believe that health is too ambiguous and therefore you should not include it. I do not happen to be one of those people. So this memo essentially informed the president. Actually, the president happened to veto this partial birth abortion bill.
All right.
And as we know, subsequently, that all changed.
All right. Senator Kyl, I want to ask you about something else. She wrote, as a law professor, an article that said these whole confirmation hearings are vapid, hollow exchanges. Do you think that people will take those words and try to make this something very different for her when they bring her before these hearings?
They may try, but in fact, I'm sure that my colleagues will try. But she will probably double back on what she wrote about and make it exactly that by speaking in generalities and not being very specific about how she would decide cases. And frankly, to some extent, I think that's the way a nominee should answer questions. You should never answer a senator's question about how you're going to decide a case, because the case is not yet before you and you don't know all the facts and the law. And that's what gets back to this question of lack of judicial experience. We just don't have any way really of judging whether she can lay her views aside and decide cases just based on the facts and law. But I don't think the way to get at it is to try to force her to answer questions, because I'm sure she won't.
Well, you know, the fact is, Senator Kyl, that Republicans didn't have much trouble with Harriet Meyer's lack of judicial experience when she was nominated by George Bush. Well, some of the leading was. What position did you take on Harriet Meyer's? I don't know the answer to that.
Well, we were all trying to be rather judicious about the nomination at the time, but you will note that her nomination was withdrawn, and there were reasons for that. Let's just put it that way.
All right. Senator Feinstein, one other question. Pat Buchanan, who has to be described as one of the leading voices on the right, wrote a column last week in which he said that while people of the Jewish faith represent about 2% of the people in this country, the nomination of Elena Kagan means that they will have 33% of the seats on the Supreme Court if she's nominated. Do you think a person's religion is an appropriate thing to talk about when you're considering a nominee? And I would go beyond that. What are the things that she should be asked about and the things she should not be asked about?
Well, the answer to your question is no. I really do not believe it makes that kind of a difference. Actually, if she is confirmed, 3 members will be of the Jewish faith and the remainder will be Catholic. Does that bother me? The answer is no. Each one of the Catholic justices are very different in how they approach the law, and I don't believe it's necessarily related to their religion. And I think they are total people, the products of their learning, their backgrounds, their experiences in life, and that's the way it should be.
I'm sorry, we're running out of time. I just want to ask Senator Kyl one key question. Do you think there is any chance that Republicans will try to filibuster this nomination when it comes to this senator?
I don't think so, Bob. The filibuster should be relegated to the extreme circumstances, and I don't think Elena Kagan represents that.
All right. Well, I'm going to thank both of you for a very enlightening discussion.